I'm Verite, and you're listening to Recess with Spinelli.
You are listening to Recess with Spinelli here on WSPN, Saratoga Springs, New York, Hoxton FM, London, England, the New York State Music Blog, and the International Radio Festival. And today we're here with Kelsey of the New York alternative pop group VERITE. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm phenomenal.
I understand that you're coming off a tour that's coming to close. What can you tell us about that?
The tour has been great. It's been the last 5 weeks. I'm definitely a little tired, but the shows have been amazing, and I've gotten to play all these new cities and meet new people, so it's really been phenomenal. But the closer I get to New York City, the more I kind of want to be home.
What are some of those new cities which you've hit up in this tour?
I hit up Orlando, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, and then St. Louis. I'm trying to think. There's Salt Lake City, Denver, Boulder. So almost half the tour was completely new.
Now, touring is one of those things that a lot of musicians definitely seem to love about the profession, love about the job. So besides the act of just going from different cities, what about seeing different cities with your career as a musician really makes it enjoyable for you?
I mean, honestly, I just like going 100% at all times, and so it's weird because you don't actually get to see a lot of the cities and you don't really get to experience them, but you get to experience them in this very small funnel, and I really like that. And I like rediscovering new aspects of each city every time you go. So it's like the first time I went to Minneapolis, I saw one thing, and then you see one more layer, and so it's like slowly unpeeling the experience.
How long after the VERITE project did you start touring outside of New York?
Pretty quickly. I started playing shows outside of New York, like one-offs within a few months. And then the first official tour was 6 or 7 months after the first release.
Is it a little bit more difficult at times to organize a tour and to get all the cities and get a packed house without being on a label?
Yes and no. I think you just have to accept that it's a slow build. I mean, I don't book the shows myself. I have like an agent and a team that does that for me. But I think just accepting that, doing everything that myself means that I'm going to grow in certain markets a little bit slower, and being okay with that and playing every show like there's 500 people in the room.
So you treat every show as if you're performing in front of a large audience where you could have a large impact. Totally.
And I think every once in a while, if you have a small crowd, you can be like, there's like these little moments of being discouraged and stuff. But every once in a while you see, and there's like someone in the front singing every word, and you're like, I can't put on a bad performance for this person. Like, that's not fair and that's not nice. So you have to be very empathetic towards that.
Now, I've also noticed that you have toured with some large acts. Two that come to mind are Ms. Mister and, of course, Marion Hill right now. Was that something... how did those come to be, scheduling-wise, without being on a label?
I think stuff like that is through various relationships and timing, and, people need openers, and openers need headliners to tour in markets that, I haven't been in. And so I think it's definitely just the right place, the right time.
So typically, do the headlining acts reach out to you, or do you try and find someone with whom you think you'd work well with as an opener?
Definitely both. It's definitely both, because the headliners need the opener needs the headliner. So it's like this mutual hand grabbing, and hopefully you grab somebody that you get along with.
So I heard you found somebody else, and at first I thought you were somebody else.
What else about not being on a label can you tell us about either the positives or negatives? Because I understand you've come quite a long way, essentially doing everything on your own, pulling yourself from your own bootstraps here. So what are your thoughts and your experience, if you will?
I have no bad experience yet. I think it's just a different kind of hustle, and it takes a very particular mentality. Maybe I'm crazy, but at the end of the day, I own all of my masters. I'm in complete creative control. I'm in control of my timeline. When I release music, what creative content I put out, what shows I do. And ultimately, because of that, I can put out content much faster. I'm not really under the thumb of somebody who is saying, oh, you can't put this out because it's not going to do well at radio. So I can much more cater to the people who are allowing me to sustain independently, which has been a real gift.
Now, do you find that might actually increase the pressure to do well? Because if something goes wrong, it all falls back on your own shoulders as opposed to somebody else?
Oh, yeah, totally. Once you start investing your own money, it's a whole different ballgame. You know what I mean? You're assigned to a major label. Ultimately, you have to recoup that money, but it's not yours initially. But, I funded this project on Applebee's tips. So it's just like the stakes are much different.
Now, just before you mentioned like pressure to make radio singles, things of that nature. As far as getting the media exposure, it definitely seems that you have a following on Spotify. I think it's over 1.3 or 1.5 million listeners per month.
We're up to 3.25 million now. Yeah, I've jumped, which is great.
So how does that translate into, I guess, helping an artist? Because it's not like buying an album.
This is like a very controversial and like nuanced discussion that like we definitely won't be able to cover all of it, but I think it's just a different experience when you own your masters and how Spotify pays out. And for me, being independent and seeing all of the income from Spotify, I think it is a tremendous resource for promotion and reaching a new audience and ultimately independently funding my project because, if you get enough streams, they do translate into real dollars that add up and like really allow you to make some different decisions.
So have you found other media has helped you as well?
Apple Music is phenomenal. Pandora is phenomenal. Every DSP and every company is very proactively trying to engage with artists and in a way that is beneficial to their careers. I think just Spotify came first, so it has the largest audience, therefore it has the largest amount of streams and the largest payoff just by pure numbers. But every little bit helps. I'm very democratic with that.
Now, when you first started getting your name out there, did you find it was via social media, via online media, or was it via word of mouth and shows?
It was, all three, but primarily blogs. I think that the internet allows things to take a life of their own, and I think emerging as a live act is a very nuanced thing, especially when you're paying musicians and you need to make sure that you're playing shows that, are worthwhile in that way, especially when you're in the quote-unquote pop realm, because you need to have a certain production value, etc.
Actually, so going back into a little bit of the history of VERITE, now, when you first started, I understand that it started as kind of like a long-distance collaboration between yourself and some other folks as far as email, corresponding via email, then putting everything together after. Is that still the case? How does that work?
I think it's very much shifted. I think back then my confidence was very low. And I think what has happened is in the past year, especially with this last EP, I've really made a very conscious decision to take the reins and kind of arrange people and these different collaborators that I work with in a very particular way to kind of shift the music a little bit. And so I think that the Living EP was like the first step in that. And then as I work on the LP, I'm really excited to kind of push myself and my writing and these different collaborators to really make something different and dynamic and big, hopefully.
In what way would you say it's shifted? You said dynamic and big, but do you have a couple examples?
Like how I work now, I think before I was very timid in my writing, so I would like send an idea and like be hesitant and not have as much, not say in the production, because I've always been so involved in the production even though I'm not a producer, but now it's like poor producers, I'm like cracking the whip. I'm just like, this is what I need, this sound. I think the sound has very much formed, and I think, I still do a lot of work via email. I do more work now, in the same room. I do all of the writing myself, by myself, for the most part, and then like we'll take it into a session and we'll mold it in that way. But I think I've just taken more charge of the creative process.
Watch it all play out, reactions too familiar. Or do you wanna freeze me up?
Now, as far as your writing goes, a lot of it comes from inspiration from within yourself, right?
Totally. It's all me in different ways.
So do you find at time it can be a little nerve-wracking to expose those certain parts of yourself to people you don't know or may not fully know?
Yes and no. I think, like, back to the previous question, the Living EP was like the first shift of that, of me literally being like, I do not care what people's perception of me is. Like, I'm going to write this. It's going to be an exact representation of what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, very much more unfiltered.
And actually, that kind of goes into the name, VERITE.
It's directly translated from French to be truth, but I got it from the concept of cinema verite, which is a documentary film style set to represent a candid reality. And so that's definitely like the sentiment that I want to portray.
So when somebody listens to a candid reality song of VERITE, what are some things that they take away or you hope they take away?
Depression. No, I don't know. For me, the goal, I don't really care how people take it. I would like people to feel something. I mean, I don't really care what they feel. They could be pissed or like mad at me, but like I would like to like somehow stir up some sort of emotion or some sort of feeling or anything.
But your songs aren't to be taken at face value, right? There is double meanings and definitely deeper meanings all over the place, right?
Yeah, there are like quadruple meanings. I mean, I don't think anybody really has the same meanings, as I do for them. But I like the idea that people can really take their own interpretations and feel whatever they want.
Audience and creator interpretation kind of existing at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not a storyteller. So it's like the idea that I'm telling a story that needs to be interpreted in a particular way, don't need it. You know what I mean? People can really take what they want, leave the rest.
So have you had any feedback from an audience member who has given you an example of how they took something away from one of your songs?
Yeah, people, like, the best compliment that I get, especially after shows, is like I can tell you've like been through some shit. Like, I love that. I love when people are like that, or like, oh, that song makes me sad. It's a weird thing, but it makes me happy.
So what would you say gets you thinking the most to be in that creative process to sit there and analyze and put a song together?
It's really weird. I mean, I definitely, because I run all of the business side of the project, I am really good at compartmentalization. And so it's when I'm not in a writing frame of mind, I don't think creatively at all, like literally at all. I am, very much like organized, rigid, and like, I love spreadsheets. And then I think I just take a nice, like, flip over to the creative side and like just push myself and very much sit alone. And I do a lot of walking. I do most of my writing while I'm walking, which makes me sad that winter is coming. But yeah, I think it's just like taking everything very internal, and I still write everything stream of consciousness and then edit from there.
To date, I think you have about 3 EPs out, and you said you have an upcoming LP. So, what can we expect from an LP, and will it differ at all from EPs? And just to add another question onto this to make it more confusing, how come you've only produced EPs to this point in time?
I'll answer the second question first. EPs, they're a good introduction, and as an independent artist, honestly, financially, they're easier to put out. And for me, I think I needed the time to grow and to become certain in what I wanted to portray and how I wanted to be perceived and all of that stuff. It's definitely been a slow growth for me, like into my own self. It's funny, I can't really tell you what the LP is going to be like because I'm still writing it. So, but I think for me, it's very much trying to push myself out of my comfort zones, really try and hit harder, and be less afraid to, be uncomfortably exposed in a way.
Is marketing an LP significantly more difficult in a way than an EP?
Yes, I mean, we live in a world where people consume music in singles, and we live in a world where press and media, want a long lead for an LP and like a full campaign. And so it's definitely a different strategy. I'm lucky enough, to be working with a much larger team now. And so I have a much larger mechanism to push an LP into the world effectively. So I think it's the right time, and I have the content, and I'm really excited about it.
So do we have an expected release date or release quarterly?
We have zero idea. I'm definitely still writing and sussing it out. And so I'm excited for what's to come, but I literally couldn't tell you.
So sometime within 2017 or potentially after?
Fingers crossed for 2017. I'll give you that.
And is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything else you think we missed that would be important? for you to portray to your listeners?
I don't know. I think we covered everything. I'm just super grateful. Like, thanks for talking to me. And I don't know. I'm really grateful for the people that allow me to like keep doing this and keep doing it independently. And it means the world.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to Recess with Spinelli here on WSPN 91.1 FM, Skidmore Radio, Hoxton FM, London, England, the New York State Music Blog, and the International Radio Festival. And we have been speaking with Kelsey of VERITE. Her new EP, Living, is out and available now.